Welcome everyone. Welcome to this WISH, so Women in Social Housing National Understanding the Menopause event. I'm so pleased that everyone could join us. I think there's over 150 people, close to 200 people that have joined this event, which is absolutely fantastic. Some of you will be friends of WISH or members of WISH. And if you're not, Hannah, who is one of the board members, will be popping some links in the channel for a bit more information about what Women in Social Housing is, and also some information about how you can become a friend or a member if you're not already. So I'm super excited for this event. We've got an absolutely fantastic lineup of speakers today for incredible women. First of all, thank you so much to them for sharing their expertise, their personal experiences, and also just taking the time to come and support this event. So the event today will be kicked off by Sharon, aka Miss Menopause. She'll be talking to us for about 20 minutes, explaining what the menopause is, what the menopause isn't. And then we will hear from Debbie from Places for People, and she will share her personal experience. We'll then hear from Steph from West Yorkshire Police, and she'll also be sharing her personal experience and journey of the menopause. And finally, we'll hear from Jeanette at the end of the event, and Jeanette will be talking to us for about 20 minutes about practical things that women can do to manage their health and well-being through their menopause journey. And if we're lucky and all goes to plan, we'll have some time at the end for questions. As always, with all of the WISH events, this is a safe, open and collaborative space. WISH is all about building networks and enabling women to thrive, and we'll be going with the spirit of trust, compassion, respect and understanding throughout this event. So there's no silly questions. Anything that you want to ask, please do so either using the chat panel, and we'd really encourage you to have debates and discussions in the chat, or at the end we have reserved a 20-minute slot for questions. So if you want to save your questions up until then, you can ask those to any of the guest speakers. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be recording today's event. It's already on. If you don't want to be seen, just please turn your camera off. If you could just mute yourself unless you're speaking during the event, that would be super helpful. And also, if for any reason the technology fails or you get kicked out, that's not planned. So please just use the Zoom link to come back in. Okay, great. So I think without any further ado, we'll get on with the actual event. And just to say, welcome. I'm so pleased you're here, and I really hope you enjoyed today's event. And I'll hand over to Sharon, Miss Menopause.
Thanks very much. So yeah, my name's Sharon McCarthy. My company name is Miss Menopause, but I do answer to anything. And I do think some people think I'm a middle-aged Mr. Man character. But I set up Miss Menopause over 4 years ago now, because the menopause was being missed. So if you'd said to me, Sharon, you're going to get passionately involved with the menopause, I would have said, don't be ridiculous. That's got nothing to do with me in my life. But because of my own lived experience, and I was so angry that I didn't know about the menopause because nobody had told me, and the impact it was having on me, just not mentally and physically, I set up Miss Menopause, which works with organisations, and I've worked with a number of housing associations up and down the country. So I'm delighted to be here today. So I was asked to talk about what is the menopause. Well, what is it indeed? Well, what I'm going to say, it's a life event that affects 100% of reproducing females. That's the point. That's the first point that I want to make. So, if you had a spare £1 million and you thought, you know what, I'd like to opt out of that menopause thing because I just don't fancy it, guess what? You can't. So for any younger people on this call today, I'm saying coming to a body near you, whether you like it or not. And I find it really interesting that we've come such a long way with things like disclosure of pregnancy. If you think about it, our organisations have got really robust policies and processes when somebody discloses a pregnancy. But yet we don't have the equivalent when we're talking about menopause in the workplace. And I just want to say that 100% of reproducing females will go through the menopause. However, they won't necessarily become parents. And I'm going to talk about me in that statistic. So don't ask me how, but I remember having a conversation with my nana in her backyard. And she was asking me about the family I was going to have when I was older. And I distinctly remember saying, Nana, I'm not going to have any children. And her direct response was, who's going to look after you when you're old? And I decided that she looked really old and I'd probably be dead by then. And now I'm older than she was when we were having that chat. So I decided that, not because I couldn't, because it was my body, my choice, and I wasn't going to be a mother. So I knew I wouldn't suffer from things like postnatal depression, postpartum psychosis, or anything associated with pregnancy. So I guess in my utter ignorance, although I'd heard intellectually about menopause, I'd heard and I knew it was end of fertility, but whatever it wasn't going to happen to me because I hadn't had children, and that was my absolute and utter ignorance about the subject. So we don't have the equivalent, like I say, from a menopausal point of view. So what I'm saying through Miss Menopause is I'm providing the girl chat, but for everybody. My mission is that everybody needs to understand this life event, because some of the most profound feedback I've had has been from men who, by their own admission, would often say, I don't need to learn about that. But I've had individuals who've got in touch with me, men who've said, learning about menopause is probably going to help to save my marriage. So what is this like mysterious menopause thing that we keep talking, we hear about, but nobody's really told us? So I often talk about, and I don't know if anybody on this call today had what I could only describe as the girl chat at school. So I had the girl chat, and I was told at age 10 or 11 that I was going to bleed every month for 30 plus years, which sounded utterly terrifying. Then I was shown something called a Dr. White's belt. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, please Google it. It was absolutely terrifying. But at least somebody would take the time to tell me about my young female form and what was going to happen to me as a young woman. But we've never had that equivalent chat about menopause. So menopause terms, let me touch upon some menopause terms. So you may or may not have heard these terms. So where menopause begins, we'll talk about perimenopause. Okay, then we've got menopause, then we've got postmenopause. So perimenopause, I like to describe as when the magic begins. And my perimenopause began at age 47, nearly 48. And the average age, however, the average age in the UK is deemed to be 51. But for most people that I meet, and including me, I would say menopause starts many months and often years before that average age. So perimenopause is when your hormones start to fluctuate. They're going up and down, round and round. Now, I thought in my utter ignorance, menopause was like a linear process. Like you'd go to bed one night and wake up and live happily ever after. That's what menopause is going to be like. Oh my goodness, how wrong was I? Not just for myself and my own lived experience, but for many of the thousands of women that I've now worked with. And in that time period of somebody's life, what's going to happen ultimately is some women are going to bleed more and some women are going to bleed less. Now, I was in the bleed less camp, so I'd always had regular light periods, but in that perimenopause phase, which happened over probably a couple of years, so I'm talking years often, not just days or weeks, I had regular periods that became infrequent, spaced out, and then I had a couple of episodes of flooding where my periods were so heavy I couldn't have left the house. Some women bleed more. The worst case I heard was a woman who told me that she'd bled every day for 3 months. Now I thought that was really hot, really bad. And then I was running a session just before Christmas there, and a woman piped up a bit like a badge of honor. She went, "Oh, Sharon, I could beat that." And I went, "Really?" She went, "Yes." She went, "I've bled every day for a year." My next response was, "What have you done about that?" Guess what she said? Nothing. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Menopause itself means this and only this. It means you have not had a period for 12 consecutive calendar months. That's all it means. So but we use the term menopause for everything. So we really should be using the term peri and then post, because effectively, really, menopause only lasts for a day, because the day after you're classed as post-menopause. So there was me. I was super excited when I had not had a bleed for 11 consecutive calendar months. I was checking on my calendar, and I thought that tomorrow when I wake up, it will be 12 consecutive calendar months. I thought magical things were going to happen. But let me tell you, all post-menopause means is this. It means you are no longer having periods, but your symptoms could go on and on and on and on. So on average, and again, I'm just talking about generic and most, on average, symptoms are deemed to last 5 to 7 years. 10 years is not uncommon. And so this is why you might meet individuals, they might be friends, family, colleagues of yours, who might be, I've met women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, who will say this, that they are still being impacted by the decline and the end of their fertility through menopause. So if you imagine that as a reproducing female, and I'm being really simplistic about this, that we're perhaps operating at 100% of those hormones, by the time some women get to post-menopause, because it's stopped their periods, some women might be left with as little as 1% of those hormones. And unless you elect for things like hormone replacement therapy, HRT, those hormones aren't coming back. So is it any wonder that we're impacted, excuse me, not just mentally, but physically as well? And the only thing that I ever learned about growing up, and I don't know if you're the same, I'd heard about menopause, I'd heard about hot flushes, and I'd heard about the change. And that was because my grandma used to refer to her friends as going through the change. Growing up, the change. And so I used to be frightened when I was going to meet my grandma's friends, because nobody told me what they were changing into. So it was like, how on earth am I meant to understand what the menopause is all about? So menopause can last for years and years. The story that the thing that I want you to think about is this. This is the key question to ask yourself or to ask of friends, family, and colleagues. And this is the question. It's as and when the menopause happens and occurs to me, is the menopause impacting the quality of my life? And it's either going to be a yes or a no. Okay, I'll say that again. So is the menopause impacting the quality of my life? And so if you answer yes, then this is what I want you to think about. Doing nothing shouldn't be an option. I'm going to say that again. So if you answer yes to that question, then doing nothing shouldn't be an option. Now, statistically, when I ask that question to women, 8 out of 10 women, statistically, 80% are going to say, not great. And then it's estimated 1 in 4, so another 25% of those 80% are going to say, Sharon, terrible, really, really bad. My next question is always, so if it's impacting the quality of your life, what are you doing about that? Guess what most people say? Anyone want to shout out? Nothing. Nothing. Correct. So I just want to say this. Did you know that the people on this call today, that you are worth it? That doing nothing shouldn't be an option. Because remember, menopause is going to be unique for everybody. Everyone's going to have a unique experience. And if you let it, menopause is the gift that will keep on giving. Remember, I met women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. But the great news is I haven't met a woman yet who said, Sharon, I've tried everything and nothing's worked for me. So let me just touch across at a very high level how you might think about managing your menopause as and when it happens. The other quite disturbing figure, which I'm quite annoyed about, just because I'm not in this club, 20% of women out there will have little or no symptoms. I know, can you believe it? I was disgusted. I was like, how dare that happen? Just because I'm not in it. So those individuals will say things like, well, I don't know what all the fuss is about. That didn't happen to me. But they are in the absolute minority. So I say there's 4 main headings how you could choose to manage your menopause. And remember, doing nothing isn't one of them. I would say you've got the medical route. What I mean by that is going to your GP. Now, it's going to be a postcode lottery on how your GP deals with you and your menopause. Some GPs are going to tell you nothing. Some are going to tell you that you're too young, and some are going to misdiagnose the menopause. Sadly, that's where we are in the 21st century. But you can, there's things like the Mirena coil as well as HRT. There are other things that GPs can offer. Then next, I'm talking about the herbal route. And so what I want to say about this stuff is, just because it sounds natural doesn't mean to say it can't harm you. So we've got to get away from this idea of this stuff is bad, this stuff is good. Whatever you choose to put in, on, or around your body is entirely up to you because it belongs to you. But my guidance is you must do your research. Must do your research. Because there are some things like black cohosh, which a number of women will say they use with no ill effect, where some studies have been done where it's impacted the liver function of some women, i.e. it's damaged their liver. So it's really, really important that you read up on anything that you choose to take. The other thing about herbal options is it can impact negatively on some conventional medicines. So you must do your research. Then there's what I call the holistic route. And things like magnets in your knickers. Now, I tried a magnet and all that happened to me was I stuck to the shopping trolley. So it didn't work for me at all. But some people out there are going to say, oh my goodness, I really, really love my magnet. So it's things like, meditation. I say if you wanted to dangle crystals from your nipples and it works for you, who cares? It's your body, your choice. But remember, doing nothing shouldn't be one of them. And then there's what I call, DIY, what you eat, what you drink, do you smoke, do you exercise? And these are good for anybody's well-being at any one time. And what I want to say about that is there's some common triggers. So things like caffeine, things like alcohol, spicy food, sugar. So keeping a food and drink diary can be really, really, really helpful. So I met one woman who said, she went, Sharon, I'm devastated. She went, I've kept a food and drink diary and I just can't drink red wine anymore. It's horrendous. She went, but you know what? I've noticed that I can drink gin till it's coming out my ears. So all I want to say is every cloud. But exercise, whether that's walking about, but strength training because we're losing bone and muscle density can be really helpful. So you can do any or some of those things. But remember, going back to that key question, then doing nothing shouldn't be one of them. And I just want to end by saying I quite often get asked, people will contact me regularly. So the two saddest things that I hear on a regular basis are, thought I had early onset Alzheimer's and I felt so alone. So I'm hoping that by the end of this session today, you will leave feeling confident enough to share or at least discuss this topic with at least one other human, whoever that might be, a friend, a family, a colleague, because I don't want any other women out there feeling isolated and alone because we're in the least exclusive club on the planet. That's what I think anyway. So we shouldn't have any one individual feeling like that. And so it's really, really important that we just normalize this conversation. I think my philosophy is certainly in the workplace, we should be able to say things like hand, foot, vagina, penis in a sentence without going, oh my goodness. We can't say that. We've all got bodies. We've all got body parts. And menopause is going to impact us all entirely differently. And it can last for years and years and years, remember. So remember, doing nothing shouldn't be an option. And like I say, I could talk the hind leg of a donkey about this subject, but I'm just touching upon a few key parts, the doing nothing, and that we're all going to be different, and that we really need to be brave, don't we? And share this information and not talk in whispered corners around, oh my goodness, it's menopause. I just want to end by saying one tiny thing, and this is just something that I'm angry about myself. And I believe this is a virtual room full of women. Now, I haven't gone completely crazy. I do know this is a lipstick. But my question to myself is, why did I used to hide my tampons up my sleeve or take a big bag to the bathroom as if I was almost ashamed? So without, reproductive health, without periods, the human race wouldn't exist. And menopause turns into a life event that 100%, remember, reproducing females are going to encounter. So if we all share this with one other person, we're going to really start to break down the barriers. So no other people feel they're isolated and alone. And that women, certainly in the workplace, can just share their stories, because it's all going to be unique to us, and get through the menopause and work through it and get out the other side. So thank you very much for listening. I think I've got 2 whole minutes to go. But has anyone got any questions quickly with those 2 whole minutes?
Thanks, Sharon. The chat is literally blowing up. There's a lot of discussion going on there, a lot of questions coming in. Would anyone like to unmute and ask Sharon a question?
Can I just ask a quick question, Deborah Tiskowski? I've got underactive thyroid.
Yes.
And I'm on levothyroxine
Yep.
for that. So I get very similar
Yes.
brain fog, tiredness. So I'm just concerned that I've only had one missed period last month, but it was 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So I believe it's got to be 6 weeks before it's officially classed as a missed period.
No,
No?
not at all. The thing I was saying, that's a really great point that you've raised, and I'm pleased that you've raised it. Some other conditions, specifically like thyroid problems, can mirror menopause beautifully. So I think it goes back to the quality of life question. Is this impacting the quality of my life? Is this bothering me enough that I want to go and get that checked out? And that's because we're all different. So, and back to, again, some women also worry that they're not getting symptoms, like, oh my goodness, I haven't had any symptoms. What I'm saying is you don't want symptoms of menopause. If you can possibly be in the 20% club, that would be brilliant. But remember, most of us aren't going to be. So are you concerned that you're going into perimenopause? Is that the question?
Yep. I'm going to the doctor's tomorrow night, and I've asked for a blood test for my annual thyroid check.
Okay.
And then I've asked for a second blood test to check if I'm going through perimenopause.
Can I ask what might seem a rude question, but can I ask how old you are if you're to
I'm
share?
50.
What
I've just turned 50.
Okay. What I want to say to you is this, and I'll quickly then move on to the next speaker. Anyone who's deemed 45 and above is deemed within the normal range of menopause. So somebody at your age is 50, because the average age is deemed to be 51. So don't be surprised if your GP doesn't offer you a blood test, because they're called FSH tests. So if you want to write that down, FSH, I'll just put my teeth in. But many doctors, because of their nice guidelines, might say, well, you're over 45, I don't need to offer you a blood test. But describe your symptoms to them and say you want to discuss menopause with them, and you want them to give you some information about that, because you're interested to see how they could help you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great question.
Thank you so much for that question. It was brilliant, and lots of discussion in the chat, which is also brilliant to see. Sharon, what an absolute star. What a way to come into the event. Thank you so much. An ultimate professional with the frog in the throat. It was, just carried on regardless. So brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. I'm sure you'll get a virtual round of applause. So our next speaker is equally as fabulous, Debbie from Places for People. Debbie's kindly agreed to share her journey with the menopause. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlotte. And thanks, Sharon. How amazing is Sharon? I so wish I'd have met her 7 years ago. I think that I would probably be in a very different position than I am now. So yeah, I'm Debbie Marriott Lavery. I'm the Executive Director for Affordable and Supported Housing at Places for People. I'm responsible for 71,000 properties, 2,000 staff, and a whole bunch of kind of day-to-day crazy, like I'm sure the majority of you deal with as well on the day-to-day. And the reason I tell you that is because it's just important to contextualize that that's what we do when we're also going through some of the challenges that we face. And as women, we have to just keep the wheels on our constant buses, don't we? So what's my story? Well, my story is that slightly different to Sharon's, is that I've had women's problems, as would be deemed, for most of my adult life. So I've had severe endometriosis. I'm sure, again, that's not uncommon. I'm sure a lot of you on the chat will be in a similar position. I also had a stenosed cervix, which meant that I, not only with the endometriosis, but also meant I couldn't have children. And I came to terms with that. I came to terms with that very, very early on. But so I've spent a lot of my career and a lot of my life dealing with women's problems. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because I've spent a lot of my career as well working with men. And I've worked in boardrooms more latterly in my career. And I've found that because of my endometriosis, I've sat in meetings and I've I've been that girl that's flooded. I've been that girl that's bled. I've stood up or sat in a chair thinking, how on earth do I get out of this meeting? I've just bled all over this this chair, and like, you know, I'm surrounded by men. What am I going to do? There's not even a girl that I can kind of demonstrate to or say, can you help me? You know, and this kind of went on. And as Sharon said, you get used to it. And kind of, you know, apart from the fact I had endometriosis, which had to sort of be checked on, it was like, you just have to get on with it. You get on with the fact that you bleed. You just deal with it. You get on with the fact that you bleed every kind of 10 days out, you know, 10 days out of a month you bleed, and then you have 10 days off, you start again. And, you know, and that's the way that you do. So you just adapt, you know, you don't go swimming, you don't ever wear white trousers, and fashion is very important to me, and aesthetics. You never do that, you know, it's just the way that you live your life. Sport, no matter what they tell you, is very difficult. And that's just how it is. So that was how it was. And then kind of just rewind about 7 years ago, and that was all going on, but it was getting worse. It was really getting worse. And I was also beginning to get really severe pains. It also doesn't help. I sound like a complete sick note here, by the way. It also doesn't help that I have celiac disease as well. So when I was getting kind of stomach pains as well, I was thinking, oh, well, that's obviously my celiacs. And, you know, you have stressful situations at work, and you think, maybe this is what's kind of going on with me. But then one day I was in the pub with friends and my stepdaughter and my husband, and I thought, I couldn't speak. I just lost the power of speech, and I started to panic, which is something I don't do. And I thought, what is going on? And I genuinely thought I was having a stroke. And there was this sensation that sort of just overtook me, that came up through my body, that I thought, and it was this heat, this intense heat, that I just thought, what on earth is going on here? And then palpitations started to occur, and I thought, I'm either having a stroke or I'm having a heart attack. I didn't know which one it was, and I was kind of thinking, well, I just wish one of them would get over with and it would just end, because this is kind of crazy. So I kind of managed to kind of contain myself and went outside and thought, what on earth was that? You know, this is kind of really weird. And anyway, it settled itself. And, you know, again, as women, you think, oh, it must have just been a moment. And, you know, that was probably okay. And maybe I'd had 1-2 glasses too many over lunch or something like that. But then this became more and more apparent at the same time that the bleeding became more and more apparent. And I was like, what is going on? So I did go back to the doctor. Now, I suppose I was fortunate that they did know I had endometriosis. So because it was getting worse and worse, they sent me for a scan. And when I went to the scan, it was one evening, and the radiographer said to me, you need a hysterectomy, and you need a hysterectomy now. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, you need to speak to your doctor tomorrow. She said, because this is now, you've now got a fibroid, which is kind of, it's over sort of, you know, 15 centimeters. And for those of you who don't know, I'm very small. So it's kind of, and that's obviously what was kind of giving me more issues. I said, but I also sat with the radiographer, and I cried, which I also wouldn't normally do. And she said, what's the matter? And I said, I don't know. There's other things that are going on with me as well. I'm getting these palpitations. I'm very anxious. I'm having dark thoughts, which I never normally do. I can't concentrate. There are times in bed at night where I just wake up with this sudden surge of kind of almost like somebody has put the paddles on me and is defibbing my heart. And I said, and I don't know what's going on. And she said, you need to go to the doctors tomorrow. So I went to the doctors, and I was very fortunate that they said to me, you need a hysterectomy. And I got a hysterectomy fairly immediately. At the same time, I was very much talking about these symptoms. And they said to me, you could also be having perimenopause, which is the first time I'd ever heard about that as well. But they did take blood tests on me, which is interesting. And the blood tests, of course, showed nothing, because if it's early perimenopause, it won't show anything. And because I had the endometriosis, so then they said, well, we'll try you on these pills. So they tried me on these pills while I was waiting for the hysterectomy, which were estrogen and progesterone, kind of HRT, which I then found out, which just completely made me ill. It was like having morning sickness all the time. And I found out that there was lactose, which was in the pills. And of course, I'm celiac, and I'm also intolerant to milk. So that was just all a complete nightmare. So eventually, having spent months dealing with severe endometriosis, a fibroid that was growing at rapid rate of knots, and also perimenopause, which I didn't understand, I would be doing the job that I'd be doing, sitting in board meetings, out and about, meeting colleagues, driving different change and dealing with things that were coming up in the business, working with a very male-dominated team. and feeling that I was completely losing my mind. I also put on quite a bit of weight, which again, for me, I'm 5 foot tall, I'm round about 8.5 stone. And there was one particular event that happened over this time where it was a birthday party of my mom's, and there were hundreds of the family there. It was a big birthday party. And I wore a dress that I was very, 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 very proud of. And I left the room of this hotel as I'd got ready, and the zip burst at the back of this dress because I'd put so much weight on. Well, I was devastated. So now, not only do I not know what's going on with me physically, I'm feeling now that I look like shit. I feel that I'm not who I am. I know I've got to have a huge operation, and I'm still not talking about it because I don't know what's going on. And the word menopause, as Sharon says, is massive stigma. So eventually, anyway, I went and had my hysterectomy. It was the best thing that I ever did. I was so scared of having it, but it was brilliant. But what happened to me, the day that I came out of surgery, I went into surgical menopause, boom. So at that stage, I've got no hormones whatsoever. So my body went completely kind of crazy. And I managed to, because of where I was in the system medically at that stage, I managed to find a lady called Julie Ayres, who's a menopause specialist and hormone specialist in Leeds. And that's where I live in Harrogate, North Yorkshire. And I went to see her and told her about the experience, told her that HRT hadn't worked for me, it made me feel sick. Anyway, she was brilliant, and all the things that Sharon's explained, and she put me on patches. And my life has just been completely different. I can't tell you the difference. I feel like I am me again. I lost the weight. I can concentrate. I have got my energy back. I can make the decisions that I need to make. I feel like I've still got a life to live, and I've still got so much to offer. Whereas I genuinely thought that, you know, in my 40s, that was the end for me, that the person I'd known all these years was just disappearing and disappearing and disappearing. And it's still now very weird to talk menopause. It sounds like such an old thing, stuff Sharon's talked about, what your grandma said to you, the change of life, still very stigmatized. But, you know, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it, and we have to do stuff. And we have to do things that will help us, that will enable us to get back to who we are. And I would say to anybody, I appreciate not everyone can use HRT, but for people who are scared, don't be. It's been the best thing that I ever did. I've been on it now 5 years. I'm scared to stop it. And I know that when I do, I'll go into a slight menopause again. And I know that day will come. But I also know there's light at the end of the tunnel. And for all of you who are going through symptoms out there, talk to people and talk to your families and your husbands. It's difficult for them as well. It was difficult for my husband. He didn't know. He could see me changing in front of his eyes, and he didn't know how to deal with that. The dynamic kind of crazy redhead that he'd married was becoming a very different individual, and that scared him, and he didn't know what that was and how to deal with it. And so he's great now as well, and he talks to other guys and other men and, you know, his friends and stuff, because he went through that with me. And that's it really. And I would just say, like Sharon, I would just advise you to just speak out. I would advise you to absolutely keep going and going and going and going with the doctor. Don't let them tell you there's nothing wrong with you. Don't let them make you feel that you're not worthy, because you absolutely are, and you need to be helped. It's not acceptable. It's totally not acceptable. It's debilitating. And if you get the symptoms like I've described, or even slight symptoms, there's something that can be done for you. And the other thing that I would just say is try and find something as well that you get an outlet from. I've always painted. I went to art college years ago, and it's always been a love of mine. And I've painted more and more and more in my darker times. And some people tell me I'm quite good at painting, and I won an award fairly recently. But the one painting of everything that I've ever done was when I came out of surgery, and I painted how I felt about my body. And it's a very abstract depiction of my ovaries, of the endometriosis, of all of the crazy I was going through. And it's the painting that I love more than anything. And it's so special to me. And I'm going to post it in the chat for you just to have a look at it. You'll probably think it's weird, and I don't really mind if you do, but it just shows you that I did something that resonated so much to me, because I needed that outlet as well. So it might be sport, it might be, you know, it might just be talking to your friends, it might be painting, it might be crafts, anything that just gives you time to make you who you are as well, because you're special, because we as women are really special. So that's it. And thank you. And yeah, just spread the word.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That was so inspiring. What an incredible journey, and just thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of love for you in the chat. I'm also slightly frightened that GPs now are just going to get a massive sway of wish women coming forward to them. But you know, really good advice, and definitely take Debbie up on that, please. Any questions for Debbie? We probably could take one, or Debbie is staying on the call, so we can do it at the end. But if anyone's got a burning question, just unmute and ask away. No, a lot of love in the chat, Debbie.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Great.
Sorry. I was just wondering. You mentioned about the HRT patches you went on. Do you think there are different medications that suit different people? Because I'm on a gel and a estrogen, and I'm not getting. Some of my symptoms are better, i.e., I'm better in myself, but I'm still getting these incredible flushes that disturb my sleep. And I am in the industry business, and I need to be on my game, and it's really frustrating me.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There are. I went through, you know, I didn't have time to kind of explain it massively, and I'm sure Sharon's got a view on this as well. But I tried a whole heap of things. I tried estrogen tablets. I tried progesterone tablets. As I say, progesterone didn't suit me at all. I don't need that now because I have had the hysterectomy, so, and I've had my cervix removed, so you don't need that. But then when I got onto patches, initially they put me onto patches, and they tried me on 25 micrograms. I then went up to 50. I'm now on 75. I've been on 75 for about the last 2 years. So I think, yes, you're absolutely right. There are tablets didn't suit me, but patches do. But even then, and the thing was, the interesting thing about what you've said about the sweats is, it was when I got to the 75 micrograms, that's when I knew it really worked, because the sweats then subsided as well. The night flushes subsided. So yeah, it really is a trial and error thing, and it's very, very personal. So yeah, and that's the other thing, you've got to keep going back, and that's where I found Julie Ayres to be amazing. And if you Google her, for people, I'd say she is Leeds based, but there'll be other people similarly like her as well. If you don't get the joy with your doctor, keep trying till you get something that suits you.
There are a limited amount of specialists in the NHS. They're few and far between, but you need a referral through your GP. So if you think you're not getting what you need from your GP, you need a referral.
Hi, I thought I'd just jump in here. My name's Val. I elected to treat the symptom that I had rather than go for a one tablet fix all, and my doctors gave me antidepressants to start with. What a load of rubbish that was.
Yeah.
And it was typical that it was a man doctor who prescribed them to me. I mean, we all understand accessing your GP is difficult. COVID, you know, I described mine online and was given a prescription. However, the next time round that I contacted the doctors, it was with a lady GP who gave me clonidine. And that's a blood pressure tablet. And that actually, I take 3 in the morning and 3 in the evening, and I have virtually 0 hot flushes at night or sweats during the day. I work in a male environment, so, you know, when you're sitting opposite your male colleague and changing colour visibly, there's no hiding it. So, you know, you've got to do something, you've got to address it, you've got to be honest. I will say medication works for me, and the only time I ever notice now is when I'm stressed. That's when I'll have a hot flash. So it's clearly associated to the stress.
Thank you, Val. Thank you so much for sharing that, and for everyone who's kind of sharing on the chat as well. Big thanks to Debbie. Hopefully Debbie will have some time for questions at the end, and you can come back in. But for now, I'm going to move on to our next speaker. She's a lady called Steph. So Steph works for West Yorkshire Police, who have kindly agreed to be a strategic partner with us at Wish for these menopause events. The police obviously is in the past known as being quite a male-dominated environment, but they're doing some fantastic stuff around the menopause. Steph's here today to share her personal experience in a personal capacity, but this is one of a series of events that Wish are running in partnership with West Yorkshire Police. And the next one, which is in March, is going to focus on what organisations can do to be a menopause-aware organisations and menopause-inclusive organisations. And the West Yorkshire Police are going to join us for that event as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Steph.
Thank you. I was just checking whether you could hear me or not. Thank you very much. So thank you, yes, Charlotte, Sharon and Debbie for your input so far, and I'm not quite sure mine will be as animated as Sharon and Debbie's, but certainly I'd like to say that I started with symptoms when I was about 43, 44 years of age, so I was relatively what I thought was young, kind of the peak of kind of work, doing quite well in the organisation, and I certainly wasn't prepared for it. And I went to the doctors basically because I'd become really short-tempered. I was suffering with really heavy, painful periods that had become really irregular, and I was having them more often than not. I would have perhaps just a week break between each period. And during that time, I was suffering with insomnia. Having worked shifts throughout my 22 years as a police officer, used to a little bit of insomnia and breaks in proper sleep and rest, so you can manage it. But it was beginning to have a real detrimental impact on my way of life. And I know that Sharon kind of mentioned that if it's impacting on your quality of life, which it really had started at 43, 44, I thought it was time to go and seek for some help and advice from the doctor. Also, I have to note that my daughter, who was about 10 at the time, and my husband had noticed a change in my personality at home. The short fuse that usually I was quite laid back. So for the sake of my marriage and my daughter, I went to the doctors, who said categorically I was too young to be going through the menopause. And at that time, I hadn't heard the phrase perimenopause, and I don't think the doctor even mentioned it to me. But what she did suggest was having the Mirena coil fitted. That would help kind of just stabilize the impact of periods and hopefully perhaps just stop the periods completely. So I did. I went and had the coil fitted, and for about 2 years, my periods did stop, and it helped a little bit with there was no spike as such in my moods. It was just I was kind of flat like that. But I then began to suffer with some real symptoms that did really impact on my quality of life. I started having night sweats, and I would have maybe 11 to 15 each night, and I'd be awoken. And I know Debbie mentioned that you kind of would wake up where you felt like your heart was being restarted. I thought actually I was dying. I'm a bit of a kind of a drama queen, and there might be people online from my work who know me from old. Well, yeah, that's Steph, the drama queen of old. But I genuinely did think, because I just was sweating from my head to my feet and my heart would be racing. I think I was fast asleep a second ago. What on earth has been going on with me? I'd have really itchy skin that would drove me bonkers, and I feel like I'd have insects crawling underneath my skin, and I'd start itching and then I couldn't stop. Because of the night sweats, I'd have real insomnia that would go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And you know, working shifts, you can cope with an odd week here or there, not being able to sleep properly, but it was really then beginning to impact on kind of my cognitive thought. I had a real brain fog. I'd be at work, and probably I'm suffering a little bit at the moment with it, that I just couldn't think of words. Somebody be holding a pen in front of me saying, would you like to borrow my, and what's the word? And I wouldn't even know what a word pen would be. Which would then really impact on my confidence. I'd just have no confidence, and sometimes at work I'd just want to go into the toilets and sob. I'd feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome, and then just I'd become really anxious. So I'd be going to work thinking, what's today going to bring? Am I going to have a good day? Am I going to be able to think clearly? Am I going to remember everything I need to remember? I'd be writing a list of things to do, and then another list of remember the things that you've got to do that's on your list of things to do, and even sometimes forget to look at my list of things to do. So it had become quite impactful on my work life. But I still didn't really know what was going on, and I was battling on and just dealing with it quietly. And then the chief constable, as was, she's retired now, Dee Collins, had initiated a survey and sent it to all female employees of West Yorkshire Police over the age of 40. And it said, are you going through the menopause? Are you suffering any of these symptoms? And there was about 35 symptoms, and I think I ticked about 31. And I thought, maybe that's what I'm going through. And it was a perimenopause. I'd never even heard of perimenopause. I thought you went through the menopause at around 50 years of age. I was 45 then. So I duly took myself off to the doctors, because I'm not one of those. I will go and do something about it. And I thought, I can't carry on like I am now. I must seek some help. At this point, I was thinking about going for promotion. So I was a sergeant working in a really supportive environment. I had a female boss who was really helpful, really supportive, similar age to me. So going, feeling the same and experiencing the same, which always is really helpful, particularly in a male-dominated environment. But I was seconded to children's social care, which is quite a female-dominated environment. So I was slightly removed from the police at that point. So I took myself off to the doctor, who at 45 years of age immediately said, you don't need a blood test. You're very likely, with the symptoms that you're experiencing the perimenopause. Talk through what that meant. And then she explained to me that she was the practice, and it's in a cluster of other practices in the Wharfe Valley where I live, the menopause expert. And she did a lot of work across the practices in the Wharfe Valley, and was really supportive, really helpful, and immediately prescribed me HRT. So off I went, feeling a little bit invigorated. That I've got the support and the help that I required. And actually, after about 3-4 weeks, I started to notice a difference. Now, what I will say is I don't feel 100% myself. I do still feel at times a shadow of my former self. And I've actually just booked an appointment to go back to the doctors, because my symptoms are exacerbated a little bit at this moment in time, and I'm not quite sure why. But I have had my dose increased twice already, so whether that's just a little bit out of sync at this moment in time. But what I would put out to everybody on here is that perhaps the medication is not right to begin with, and that you do need to go back and keep talking to your GP, and hopefully that you will get a really supportive GP and that can offer you that help. It is quite difficult working in a male-dominated organisation, and I think it still is massively male-dominated. Albeit there are lots of female support officers for support staff that work for West Yorkshire Police, and the proportion of that is quite high. Within the police officer arena, I think it's about 37% police women, and obviously the rest male. My current boss, who just started last week, is a male officer. He knows I'm involved in this event today, but I've not sat down with him and talked to him about, well, actually, I'm going through this. And I do feel, and it's really bad of me, but I'm going to be really open and frank with you all, I feel a little embarrassed about it, because, like Debbie said, I've been involved in some really serious investigations, and I feel really proud of what I've been able to achieve throughout my service so far. But I feel weak, and it's the last thing I want to feel. And I know it's just, Sharon mentioned, it's a rite of passage. It's what happens to women. It happens to everybody, and we should be able to feel liberated to be able to talk about it. But genuinely, I do feel that I wish I was at 20% that I didn't get any symptoms. But it's really important that we talk about it in this arena. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to support West Yorkshire Police and police officers and police staff within our organisation. And I'm part of the National Menopause Action Group. And what I do to help myself also massively into exercise, a little bit of time for me, out with friends, walking up a hill, running if I can up a hill, probably walking, actually running down the hill. But it's just keep talking about it, and thank you very much for letting me speak. And I feel like I've rambled on far too much, so thank you very much.
Not at all, Stephanie. That was absolutely amazing. Again, so much love in the chat. Lots of claps coming in as well. Just so much of that. What you've just talked about resonates with me. And just to say, you're definitely not weak. You're so strong and brave. And yeah, just loved listening to you talk. Actually, so thank you so much, Steph. Has anyone got a quick question for Steph?
Hiya. It's great what she was saying, well, not great, but about the brain fog and just forgetting things that you do and notes. and I didn't realize I was going through the the perimenopause, and I'm life and soul of the party, or I like to think that, and I'm introducing people, and people I've known for years, can't remember their names, can't remember their faces, and it kept happening, little things like that. Or I was talking to somebody and I just forget the words, and you'd feel so stupid because you'd be in the middle of a meeting or something like that, and nobody warned you about that. And it's only through speaking about this now that you were going through it for a number of years, but it wasn't identified. So thank you, strong women at the top, recognizing this and bringing it into our company. Thank you, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you for that and for that the question. Yeah, just to echo what Ronnie says. What a line of speakers so far. So honest, so brave, so inspiring. Actually, it just makes me want to go out and manage my health better, but also really lean into my career. I know it's going to be tough, but yeah, just really, really inspiring. Thank you so much. So we're now on to our final speaker of this event. I'd like to welcome Jeanette from Manchester Stress Institute. So Sharon at the beginning touched on a couple of ways that women can manage their health and well-being through the menopause. And there's been a lot of talk both from the speakers and in the chat about kind of GP interventions and hormone replacement therapy as well. So Jeanette's just going to bring in a slightly different angle. So over to you, Jeanette.
Thank you. Hello everybody, good afternoon. I've dropped in at 1 o'clock, so I managed to catch some of the conversation, and yeah, I'll just echo what everybody else has said. Really inspirational. What an amazing forum for us all as women to be able to share in a trusting, inclusive environment. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm actually going to present some slides to you, so I'm just going to get them up here. And whilst I'm doing that, just want to say that a bit of background about myself, really. So I'm Jeanette Jackson. I'm from the Manchester Stress Institute, and I am a menopause nutrition and wellbeing expert. So that sounds quite grand, but I'm actually a biochemist and an elite sports scientist. So that fits most perfectly with the menopause, because what the menopause is a shift and a change in hormones, and that hormones really directly impacts, as many people have mentioned, on the menopause and on the body. So I've heard a lot of terminology today around mood, anxiety, hot flushes, depression, weight gain, and brain fog. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is looking at ways of well-being to really help support the body and the brain through the transitional period of the menopause. And it's almost a little bit like, I'd probably call this presentation Beyond HRT, because HRT has been talked about a few times throughout this presentation and this program. And HRT or not is what I want to say. We still have a physiology, we still have a biochemistry that is supporting you through your life. And I know, as a biochemist, if you could make your nutrition as optimal as possible, your exercise a regular occurrence, and then improve your sleep profile, then what you will find is, as you are going through the menopause, your biology, your well-being will be enhanced. There's no doubt about that. So what I would say is we need to look at beyond the menopause to have a happy, energized menopause, or certainly beyond HRT. So we're looking at these different classifications, looking at nutrition, sleep. Really important to look at how we actually get ourselves ready for sleep, and of course stress, seeing our friends, and also some exercise. Now, somebody's mentioned exercise here already. We know categorically, here's some evidence from the National Library of Medicine, that exercise training reduces the frequency of menopausal hot flushes by improving the thermal regularity control within our system. So when we approach the menopause and we're going through the menopause transition, our thermal regulation decreases. So what we find is in a room temperature that may be warm but not hot, we could have a hot flush. In a room that's maybe chilly but not cold, we could get the real chills. So our thermal regulation contracts, if you like, and it's a smaller zone. So we know that exercise training helps with that and helps to reduce the frequency of hot flushes. So that, if you wanted a reason to start exercising while you're going through the menopause transition, that is one. Another one here, this is from the BMJ, so the British Medical Journal. As you can see here, a trial suggests that yoga and exercise lead to modest improvements in menopause related, and this terminology has been bandied about today quite a bit, which is brilliant, in the quality of your life. Now, I will take modest improvements, thank you very much, if it's going to really help to improve the quality of my life. And when I'm talking about exercise, it doesn't have to be massive exercise where you have to go to the gym. You know, we're talking about movement. In movement, in terms of walking, we have lymphatics in our groin, in our knees, in our abdomen, in our feet. And if you could just get into a habit of moving at lunchtime, or, you know, before work or even after work, just a brief walk, 10 minutes one way, 10 minutes back at pace, we know that that can have a positive impact, not only on the severity of hot flushes, but also on your mood, the rise in endorphins, and on your quality of life. So exercise can be really important for the menopause. But of course, you know, I'm a nutritionist and a biochemist, so I wanted to talk to you about nutrition. So these are the foods to avoid. There's no surprise there at all. We know that sugar can really impact upon the weight gain, but also, particularly around the menopause, it can affect our insulin and our estrogen kind of quantities, if you like. But also the stimulants that we have and the spicy food, avoid them at all costs. One of the challenges that I find when we're doing our Beat the Menopause Burnout program is that people feel tired. People are not sleeping very well. And research shows that if we have a run of poor night's sleep, maybe 3 or 4 nights sleep in a row where you're not sleeping very well, then on average, people eat an extra 500 calories a day because you're tired, you want high fat, high stimulated, high sugar foods. So it's a real kind of vicious circle in a way. The foods that we would, of course, recommend that you eat are foods that are rich in soy products, that beans, legumes, whole grains, and these kind of foods that are really going to help support your mental and physical well-being. So, of course, in a short space of time today, I've just put a real snapshot of slides together. But a few things I wanted to talk to you about with a specific reference to nutrition and things that you can take away today and start to create an impact immediately are things, for example, such as vitamin E. So vitamin E, what we know about foods that are rich in vitamin E is this: they can help to reduce the severity of hot flushes. Now, I don't know whether anybody actually takes any supplements at this moment in time, but supplementation and just 400 international units for 3 months of vitamin E help 50% of women to reduce the severity of their hot flushes. So if you are somebody who experiences this, then vitamin E will be a really good supplement for you. But you don't have to get your vitamin E from supplements. You can have it, for example, from something like this. So some delicious soups that are going to not only give your body vitamin E, but a whole host of crucial vitamins and minerals that will help your body to generate energy and support your energy throughout your menopause transition. So vitamin E is very, very important, as is, and you can also get vitamin E from these type of foods as well. So we're looking here at a really brilliant anti-inflammatory juice. And again, if you could put that into your diet maybe once a week, you would find great benefit. I am going to, if you would like, to send you some recipes. So I'll give you the email address as we go through. But vitamin E is great, and it also has all these different properties. Vitamin C, Well, vitamin C combined with bioflavonoids, which are foods that you find these in a whole host of different fruits and vegetables, can reduce the frequency, not the severity, but the frequency of hot flushes. Now that again is a massive win-win for anybody that's experiencing hot flushes. And of course, vitamin C is also really important for the manufacture of collagen, which helps with bones, but also skin elasticity. And I heard Steph mentioning there about the fact that she had this itchy skin where she felt she had, like, you know, insects crawling under her skin. And of course, that comes from the lower levels of estrogen, because estrogen plays a very important role in skin elasticity and viscosity. So again, foods that are really high in vitamin C will help with this. So these are the kind of foods that you're wanting to be putting in there. And also, it's not just the foods that you want to put in, it's the combination of foods. So the carrot, the apple, red pepper, and the ginger juice, and just an inch of ginger. Collectively, these foods are very, very, very powerful in helping to infuse your body with vitamin C. Another one that I think is really, really important for the menopause is magnesium. Now, many people experience anxiety, and I know that anxiety is one of the primary, if not the primary symptom associated with the menopause. And we know that low levels of magnesium are associated with a drop in serotonin. And serotonin is a neurotransmitter, and as a neurotransmitter, it helps to calm the body down. So that is a double-edged sword. So low levels of magnesium, you get low serotonin, and with low serotonin, some women experience higher levels of anxiety. So magnesium is really important. Equally as well, magnesium is important for converting vitamin D, and we know that low levels of vitamin D are absolutely associated with mental health conditions. So people can really experience depression if their levels of vitamin D are low. So what I'm always trying to do as a biochemist and as a sports scientist is connect the dots here. So go, okay, so we're going through the menopause transition. How could we be best able to support your full physiology through this? And what we know is that when people are experiencing night sweats or hot flushes through the day, if you have ever tasted your sweat, which let's be honest, we all have at some point in our life inadvertently, what does your sweat taste of? Well, it tastes of salt, doesn't it? And what happens when we sweat is we lose valuable electrolytes. So I designed the hot flush soup, and this is soup that helps to replenish electrolytes that are lost during hot flushes and night sweats. And you can see the combination of ingredients here. Broccoli, kombu is a marine algae plant that really helps to put iodine in the body and helps with thyroid function. All these amazing lentils and pulses that provide amino acids that help to support brain function by promoting neurotransmitter formation, and kale and spinach, which are really high in that magnesium that we've just talked about. So I think it's kind of joining these dots that we want to do. So say I'm losing my fluids, how do we get them fluids back? But not only do we get them back through drinking water, but we get them back so that they're infused through the body. So we have a programme that I'd love to invite you to attend your organisation called Beat the Menopause Burnout. We present this programme a lot to emergency services. So we work with paramedics, police, ambulance, fire, mountain rescue, prison service, and it's all about how to improve resilience, and not only that, but just to help to create a better, healthier mind and body through the menopause. So I'd love it if you'd be interested in that, and you can email us, or if you ask for the recipes, we can send you the information for that as well. Listening to Steph actually talking about working in a very male-dominated environment, when we present the andropause workshop, which is the male equivalent of female menopause, men are really interested in their own hormones, and what we find is it really can help to generate great communication between the sexes actually around hormones, the shift in hormones, and the consequence on our mental, physical and emotional well-being. So Steph, I just put that in there. I quickly put that slide in there just to let you know that if that's what you want to do for your organisation, it can really help with that levels of communication. So nutrition is really important, not only for during the day, but in helping you to sleep well too. So we have, I know as a biochemist that there are some foods that can induce the manufacture of melatonin, which is a sleep hormone, which can really help you to get to sleep much more quickly. And I've mentioned that we do work a lot with the emergency services, and these people work shifts, and we know that that can impact on the circadian rhythm. But not only the circadian rhythm, which is a night-day pattern, but also on the sleep drive, like the desire to fall asleep as well. And it's never ceases to amaze me how quickly you can re-establish really great sleeping patterns once you've eliminated the antagonists that we are putting into the diet, into the body when we're feeling tired. So if you do remove the high sugar foods, the high fat foods, the caffeine, the spicy foods, and you give your body a space to be able to better absorb these nutrients, and you put them in at the right stages throughout the day with the right supplements to support that as well, it can be, honestly, it can be a game changer. But another thing in terms of mental health for the menopause and sleep is it's my observation, having presented for many, many years now on the menopause and well-being. Well, certainly in terms of sleep, that we have three very clear delineations. So we have day, evening, and then night. And all of us, most of us, unless we work shifts, sleep at the night, right? So during the day we're awake, evening we're kind of doing tea, evening meal, etc., seeing friends, relaxing, and then we go to sleep. And it's at night time that we close our eyes and we try and rest. I think for people that are on the menopause and are really struggling with sleep, it's a really great idea to take some of these chunks of deep relaxation and to put them in during the day and learn real key strategies to develop restorative recovery periods throughout the day. And we do a lot of this work with the athletes that we work with. So finding a skill set and developing a skill set, and these might be podcasts, it might be 3 minutes, it might be 5 minutes, it might be a 30-second regroup with yourself where you can really become very proficient at releasing stress, relaxing the body deeply, and then resetting yourself. That can be amazing. So I really do believe that learning how to rest deeply while you're awake is a key skill. I've mentioned supplements. I'll just talk about two very quick supplements. Krill oil is phenomenal for brain function. Your brain, my brain, is 70% fat. We have to feed the brain the right fats to stimulate the synaptic impulses across the brain neurons. And krill oil is phenomenal for helping to support that. So that's another supplement that you might want to look at, as is this one. Long name, it's called Phosphatidyl Serine. And again, you can see here, it's one of the most crucial components of brain cell neurons. And what we know in terms of estrogen, we know that the prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning, is very heavily dependent on estrogen. So as the estrogen levels decline, that's when we can start to really have this aspect of poor memory, most certainly poor working memory, and this level of brain fog. So if you put one of these fats into your system, they will honestly support your memory and your function and your focus and your concentration as well. So what I did for you as a gift is I put together a menopause nutrition table. So on the left, you'll see a whole host of different proteins. Remember what I said, proteins make neurotransmitters, and then a list of different supplements and vitamins. What you do, you choose one food from each group. So for example, salmon, kale, lime juice, asparagus, pumpkin seeds, and tomatoes. The only thing you've done here is steamed some kale and some asparagus and oven roasted some salmon, and there's your dish. And you can see, packed with omega oils for memory, concentration, energy, vitamin K, vitamin E, vitamin C, magnesium to really help with that muscle relaxation and help you to sleep. Another one could be chicken, turkey, edamame beans, lentils, and there is your dish. So this table, what you do, these are all foods primarily that we would have in our larder or in our kitchen cupboards at home. Cod, sweet potato roasted, some eggs, spinach, and then have some yogurt and figs for dessert. And there's your nutrition. And every single part of these dishes is functional nutrition. It plays a role in your body. It helps your body to recover from adrenal stress, and it really can help to enhance your biochemistry. That's me. I'm done. Thank you very much. It was a whistle-stop tour. I'm sorry if I went very fast, but I wanted to give you some context around nutrition.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Ever the professional, thank you so much. I've just been amending my Sainsbury's online shop with all that fantastic food ideas, and also I'll be off to Holland and Barrett for sure. But no, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. And the chat is really appreciative of that as well. That gift at the end of that table is brilliant. I think we've already said in the chat, but we will definitely send out Jeanette's contact details, but also any of the resources that she wants to share as well, together with the presentation. So that is the end of the formal presentations for today. I mean, what a fantastic set of speakers. Thank you so much. Everyone today's donated their time completely free of charge, and absolutely brilliant, and just some really excellent personalized stories as well. So thank you everyone for coming along. I also just want to say thank you to the participants as well. I've never actually been on an event where the chat panel has been so active. It's been absolutely amazing. So thank you for bringing your energy and enthusiasm and participating. So we do actually have about just under 15 minutes, so there is an opportunity for people to ask questions. There's been lots of questions in the chat, so I'm sorry if we've not answered anything. It has been quite difficult to keep up, but yeah, this is just an open forum now to ask questions and to just start a discussion. So yeah, please use this time, and the speakers will be with us until the end. There was something earlier in the chat panel, Jeanette, someone was asking about weight loss, and kind of is it true that it is, when you're going through the menopause, it's harder to lose weight?
Well, with the menopause and the andropause as well, actually, the male equivalent of a menopause, we have a shift in fat disposition. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. So some people can experience that around subcutaneous fat around the abdomen, but also around the hips as well. And yeah, I mean, you know, what we know is that our digestion slows down at the menopause. When we present menopause workshops to organisations, we have a brilliant chap called Dr. Ram, who is a consultant gastroenterologist, and I'm sure that he would love to come on your next thing that you're doing in March, actually.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and Dr. Ram is an amazing guy, and he talks about how our digestion slows down. So when we are eating the foods, our ability to break them down and then absorb them optimally can become quite compromised. So again, I think it's not just one thing where we start to gain weight around the menopause. It's a collection of different things. And I think anybody that taught, yes, it does actually, Charlotte, yeah. So constipation can also become a real aspect for some women on the menopause, without a doubt. And again, Dr. Ram will talk to you of significance with that. But it's a collection of different things. So isn't it true, I would say, for most people watching this webinar, that when you feel tired and exhausted and stressed, we are much more inclined to reach for foods that are high in sugar, higher in salt, and more readily available, really. So that can be another consequence as well, that poor level of sleep that I mentioned. But yeah, weight gain, for some women, not for all, but for some women, it can most certainly be a symptom of the menopause. And, you know, as I mentioned, if anybody wants to email, I'm very happy to send through that protein and vitamin table to you, so you can start to design some recipes for yourself.
Thank you. The green juices, I'm a bit of a fan of green juices. I know they're a bit Marmite, but is there a better time of the day to have your actual juice? Is it breakfast time? Is to aid with digestion as well, or later in the day?
I guess it depends what you're putting in it, really. So we've got 2 green juices that we tend to offer. One of them has avocado in there, and then another one just doesn't. So it depends really. What I would say is, you know, knowing yourself, where do you tend to have your most regular energy slumps? So if you have energy slumps during the morning, then I'd put your green juice in then. But then, you know, looking at people like, say, for example, at the moment we're working with the North West Ambulance Service, they work shifts. So what I'm suggesting to them is they make the green juice in the morning. They also add some protein to that, some protein powder, so 20 grams of protein powder. And then they would have that green juice as the mid-break. So they take half the green juice, say 11 o'clock, with a supplement, and then the other half at that, maybe about 3 o'clock, so that you're spreading out your protein profile, you're spreading out your fat profile, and that your body, as it's starting to use them components in your nutrition, then you're picking that up again when your body would normally slump. That's what I would probably do.
That's really good, thank you. And the chia seeds, are they helpful for anything? Because it's another thing that I used quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So chia seeds are absolutely crucial. They contain the right fats for the brain. That's one thing. I don't have anything to demonstrate here right now, but chia seeds, when you put them in the either in the overnight oats or in the smoothie, they will swell. You've probably noticed, you've probably seen these chia seeds breakfasts that you can have where they swell. And they swell because the seeds are actually taken in the water, either from the yogurt or from I tend to use coconut water. And they swell, and in swelling the husk actually separates and the healthy oils comes out, which is amazing. So what you've got there, you've got still a fully formed husk, although it's split, and then you've got the natural oils that have come out. So the beauty of this, and this links into the person that was just mentioning about the constipation as well, is that of course the husk from them chia seeds, we don't digest them, they come back out again. A bit like sweet corn, sorry about that. So what we do, we put them in our body and they come back out. So what they do, because they're soft but fully formed, they gently exfoliate the inside of your intestines and help to take away putrefactive material, thus allowing your body to be better able to absorb the good quality nutrients that you're putting in your system. So it really can. And that's why I was saying about nutrition, in particular, I think for the menopause, it's a multi-layered capacity. So yeah, so thank you for that question. But thank you everybody for the opportunity to speak to you. What a pleasure. What a brilliant team that you put together, I have to say, of speakers. I've really enjoyed it. Steph, great to listen to you. Debbie, I think we've got a meeting planned soon to discuss some work. What a great opportunity. Thanks ever so much to everybody at Wish. And if Jane Atherton is listening, hi Jane.
Thanks, Jeanette. See you soon. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Right. Great, thank you. So we've got about 7 minutes left. So any questions for the other speakers or anything that you just want to debate and discuss? I also popped something in there to say we are wanting to run a series of events. So if there's anything that you think, oh, they didn't quite cover it at this event or they sort of touched on it, if you could just let us know any ideas and we'll see whether we can put some more events together.
Hi, I just wanted to mention, I did put something earlier on in the chat because a lot of people were saying about night sweats and things like that. I've suffered terribly with night sweats. I've not had a day sweat at all, but I've suffered badly with night sweats. And I was in this cycle of anxiety, not being able to sleep, falling asleep, waking up soaked, didn't know your shins could sweat, having to get changed, then needing a pee, coming back, being anxious again. And it was just a circle over and over. Wool duvets, I know it sounds ridiculous, but wool duvets, natural fibres for your bedding, it's made a world of difference. No night sweats now at all. Cotton bedding, sheets and night dress, and I just sleep now. It's been brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Emma. I also did not know that your shins could sweat. So this is that is news to me, but really good tips on the wool blanket and the natural cotton bed sheet. So thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other questions? Sharon, is there anything else you want to say? Obviously you kicked us off at the beginning of this. I just wondered whether you had any reflections on the event or if you picked up anything in the chat panel that you wanted to kind of touch on again.
I think for me, it's just knowing that you've got lots of options. You know, nutrition obviously is really, really important. You know, and if you don't want it, I think a few people have said, "Oh, I'm worried I can't exercise enough," or "What about this?" I think it's about knowing yourself best of all, and knowing when a change takes place. You know, whether that's mentally or physically, and it may be menopause, it may not. This is really a whole well-being message. I know we're talking specifically about menopause today, but I have to say that out of the thousands and thousands of women I've met over the years, just going to say, I'm sure it's nobody on this call, but the women I meet are really rubbish at caring for themselves. Just saying. So what you tend to find is women are running around, and we know statistically women are having children later in life, so might be looking after younger kids, older family members. Who hasn't looked after more friends and family throughout this whole COVID lockdown stuff? And often not caring for themselves. And what I find with menopause, quite often in the early days, it might not be enough. And we're very stoic, aren't we? There's not a lot keeps women off work. You know, we'll battle through whatever. So turning up for work, feeling a bit meh one day, you know, I can't really remember things. I'll talk about, you know, what's this? It's a thingy, it's a thangy. I've put my keys in the kettle, and almost reversing away from opportunities. And like I say, I tend to find that women, after a very short period of time, will decide, do you know what, I just can't do this anymore. And my message has got to be, it doesn't matter what you choose to do, but this back to this doing nothing. And I hope from all of the brilliant information that you've heard today and all the different speakers, what you'll see is everyone's had a unique experience of their own menopause, and that's how it will be for you. So you might be fortunate enough to be the 20% club, which, oh, you lucky old thing if you are. But if you're not, don't think that you just have to put up with it. You know, I know if I'd asked my mum and my grandma how did they manage their menopause, they would have said things like, "We just got on with it." And what I say is, I would defy my mum and my grandma in the 21st century to do the sort of breadth of stuff we do now. You know, we've got a computer in our hands most of the time. We're doing stuff all of the time, the amount of information we take in. And the biggest stressor my mum and her grandma had when they were going through their menopause was probably whether they're going to boil the tatties over for the tea, because my grandma didn't work at all and my mum worked part-time. So the world has changed enormously. So we do not have to put up with stuff. We shouldn't just be putting up with it. We should be caring enough about ourselves, whatever that looks like, just to make sure that you get back to the you that you've always been, if you can, or at least have that as an intention. But this whole doing nothing business, I don't want to hear of any more victims of the menopause, just saying. So I hope, like I said at the beginning, I hope each and every one of you will feel inspired, confident from whatever you've heard today, from what anyone, and I think it's been a brilliant session from my point of view, hearing everybody else talk, that you'll go and share this with at least one other human. And then we're going to stop, you know, start this critical mass of demystifying this thing that's going to happen to 100% of reproducing women.
Thank you, Sharon. That was absolutely a brilliant way to summarise. So thank you so much. Jen, you've got your hand up. I think this might be the last question that we take, unless people put it in the chat. I've also been asked to do the poll. I'll be honest, I don't know what that is. So I'm hoping that someone from Wish Central is going to pop that in the chat. But if people could take a minute to do the poll, I'd be really appreciative. So Jen.
Hi ladies, I wanted to ask if anyone had any positive experiences and managed to get a prescription for testosterone. So, you know, it's incredibly difficult, isn't it, I think, to champion yourself and then to get that testosterone prescription. So what were the benefits really, and how difficult was it to get your hands on some?
What I want to say is, so just to let you know, so testosterone isn't licensed for women in the UK, and you'll only get it through the NHS by being referred to one of these specialist clinics I mentioned earlier. So it's about, so mine was to do with, I would rather have a Sunday dinner than have sex. So mine was all about loss of libido. So it's just, but again, it's about knowing yourself. And because my HRT solved everything, but that element, going back and saying, I want to be referred to a specialist. And then I actually was able to get some testosterone.
Yeah,
but it's not just a straightforward route.
It really isn't. No, it definitely isn't. I mean, I have had a referral myself to a specialist, and the same clinic, the first guy I saw was absolutely amazing, prescribed me my HRT. The second gentleman, it felt as though I'd gone back to the 1950s and to my old GP, because he was very much of the mindset, well, you don't need that, and you can only take HRT until you're 50. And it's just very disappointing. And there's lots of toing and froing, and it's incredibly disheartening, isn't it, when you're visiting the same topics with such a vast experience from the medical professionals that we're trying to tackle this with.
Yeah, all I would say is it's a postcode lottery when it comes to the medical professional at the moment. Download the nice guidelines, everyone can get their hands on them. I've got some articles on missmenopause.co.uk about how to speak to your GP, but I fundamentally think we need, from a girl power point of view, to take our power back and to start challenging and questioning GPs in a different way, like asking them pertinent questions. Because I think what's happening certainly at the moment is a number of GPs seem to be giving a personal opinion in a medical setting, and it makes us think we're getting medical advice. And 9 times out of 10, I would say we're getting personal opinions.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll guide myself with the nice guidance then, and I'll go in armed and ready. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It was such a great way to end what has been an absolutely fabulous event. Fabulous speakers, brilliant participation. We are planning to do other events on the menopause. So if we've not quite covered anything, please let us know, and we'll put another event together. But yeah, just to say thank you again. It's been absolutely brilliant, and we will send out the recording of this, all of the presentation slides, and all of the various things, the WISH guidelines, the link to Sharon's website, and we'll send it all out as one massive bumper pack. So thank you again, and it's been a very, very enjoyable afternoon. Thanks, everyone.